Each year there is an art show called Paint the Train, and it's organized with the Fraser Valley Heritage Rail Society, and therefore there's usually like an educational, historical context to the theme. While I may like trains, I don't really know that much about them. So for inspiration, we went to the Heritage Rail Adventure, where we could view and even ride some century-old rail cars. So it was during this visit that the art theme for this year's Paint the Train was going to be rail activity, which is very vague. So this is where I'm very glad that we were able to visit the Discovery Center. And we'd arrived early enough to watch a documentary video where the workers were taking the retired wooden rail cars and smashing them and burning them. So it centered around this one electric interurban line, which was a commuter train to get people from the valley into the city. But what was interesting is that it wasn't just a commuter train. Sometimes there would be a freight car attached to it. So there was some fuzzy footage of workers flinging the doors open and tossing large sacks of mail into the trucks. And so this year I decided that I wanted to create a kind of Richard Scarry world of jobs kind of scene where I would be reusing my little cartoon cats as kind of stand-in characters to portray action, and they would be at a train station and we'd be unloading mail and dairy canisters off of the rail car and into their little trucks. And I had so many struggles with this one. It's a fun tip. If you have a sketch that you want to use, but it's not the right size, just scan it, blow it up, print it out, charcoal on the back, and then just transfer it to my paper. And then I don't have to draw everything from scratch again if I don't want to. And I don't. So I had this visual idea of a slightly aerial view of the station with the little cat workers doing their business. And this posed a bit of a problem because of my style. I'm not photorealistic, but I still lean towards the realistic category, which means I rely a lot on photo references to make things look okay, and I could find none. And because these pieces are juried by people with historical knowledge, I've kind of felt a lot of pressure to get the details right so that I wasn't, accidentally creating misinformation. There were lots of tiny pixelated photos of rail cars similar to what I'm looking for, but all of them were taken from the ground. So I'd accidentally burdened myself with trying to guess what the top of a historical rail car might look like. I was also drawing inspiration from the video footage, but I don't have photographic memory. And I was certain that there was a tiny pickup truck that had a wooden bed. And the only reference I can find was a shot of one from behind, so I had to guess what the front of such a vehicle would look like. And in hindsight, every weekend, I was walking past a truck museum that actually had this truck parked in the yard, and I must have subconsciously recorded it because I think this version I made is pretty darn close. And it ended up being my favorite part of the painting. The dairy truck was challenging. I loved it in the sketch because I was drawing it all airy-fairy and trying to make it look like they were really doing a fast turn with one guy hanging out the door holding his hat down in the wind. Trying to recapture that in detail was hard and ended up looking kind of stiff. One thing that I ended up doing was finding a box shape and then leaning it on a surface to kind of tilt it in the direction that I thought it might tilt if it was turning right with a bunch of inertia with it. I think this did help a lot because once I drew the box, I was able to kind of mold the truck shape around it. Oh, and I ended up changing the kitties to have different patterns, because while it's fun to just paint a generic cat as a placeholder character, having a bunch of identical kitties in the context of like an active workplace, it was starting to give it a creepy Borg clone Oompa Loompa kind of vibe. That had to go. So as a result of the struggle of creating so much from imagination, having all the wrong photo references or none, creating a train station that doesn't actually exist from my imagination, and forgetting to consider the electric infrastructure involved, and maybe having a nonsensical workflow for the kitties, I did end up with a painting that is probably horribly inaccurate, with really awkward perspective and composition issues. But it is more or less the Richard Scarry experience that I was originally going for, and that's the part that's supposed to be fun and creative.